A quick disclaimer before watching this video. Sensitive topics such as suicide and death are included in this analysis. Viewer discretion is advised. How many times can you say there's a story where the main antagonists aren't even the main antagonists, but their names are still in the title? Okay, saying that out loud sounds kinda silly, but you know what I mean, right? Well, let me explain. Heathers is about a socially awkward teenage girl named Veronica Sawyer who attends Westerberg High School. She disapproves of many of her classmates' cruel behavior until she becomes part of the most popular clique in the school, three wealthy and beautiful girls with the same name: Heather Duke, Heather McNamara, and the ruthless leader, Heather Chandler. However, that clique doesn't last for long, because Veronica soon meets this mysterious man named Jason Dean, or JD for short, who changes the course of the entire plot. His tragic backstory, mixed with his hatred for the school, causes Veronica to become fascinated and soon fall in love with him. I'll get to his backstory later because it's important, but everything changes once the Heathers invite Veronica to a party. Keep in mind, it's not like Veronica was completely lonely, because she has one best friend named Martha Dunstock, who is also invited to the party by a supposed guy who ends up lying to her about it just so everyone, including the Heathers, can humiliate her. That's when Veronica gets angry and betrays the Heathers by going against their plan. Heather Chandler also gets angry and vows to destroy Veronica's reputation. Veronica rushes to JD's house to do their taxes. But the next morning, they sneak into Heather Chandler's house, where JD serves Heather Chandler a liquid he claims is a hangover cure, but is actually drain cleaner. They ultimately kill her, and JD advises Veronica to forge a dramatic suicide note in Heather's handwriting. After hearing about this apparent suicide, Westerberg High School takes it very seriously by making Heather Chandler even more of an icon. Heather Duke then takes on the role of the new leader, but that's more of a side story. These two jocks also try to get into Veronica's pants, and JD tricks her into thinking that she can lure them out into the woods and shoot them with fake bullets from his gun, but she ends up killing them instead. Once again, they forge a suicide note for the two jocks, and the school falls into an even darker pit of depression. People like Martha Dunstock and Heather McNamara even try to commit suicide, but do end up failing, so don't worry. Veronica refuses to commit any more murders, but JD has an even bigger plan to rig explosives in the boiler room below the gym of Westerberg High School. Veronica pretends to commit suicide by hanging herself with her clothes in her bedroom, causing JD to attempt to blow up the school by himself. Veronica chases him down and finally stops him and his plan, which allows for the school to slowly transition back to how it was supposed to, with no more Heathers to rule the school and no more people like the psychopath that is JD. As you can see from that massive summary that I just gave about the plot, there is a lot to unpack here. The Heathers musical was originally a film written by Daniel Waters and directed by Michael Lemmon in 1989. The musical was solely created to appeal to the generation that grew up with the 1989 film. Fun fact, the musical was only ever an off-Broadway show, so it never reached a Broadway stage. Plus, it only lasted for about 4 months, from March 31st to August 4th at New World Stages in New York City. And apparently, this just in folks, Heathers is scheduled to return to New York City this year in 2025. Okay, I just learned that when doing my research, and what a pleasant surprise that is to hear. Anyway, throughout the musical, there have been many actresses who starred as Veronica Sawyer, such as Barrett Wilbur Weed, Carrie Hope Fletcher, and Jenna Innes. Barrett Wilbur Weed was the one who originated the role, and even appeared in an early production in Los Angeles in 2013. Carrie Hope Fletcher starred in the Off-West End and West End production, and Jenna Innes was in the second UK tour of the show. Speaking of Jenna Innes doing a tour in the UK, I actually studied abroad there and had the chance to see a play of Heathers where I got the chance to meet her along with much of the cast. It's quite funny because the guy who played Jason Dean was a really nice guy, even though he was very creepy during the show. Shout out to one of the guys who played JD, Keelan McCauley from Canada. I don't know if he'll ever watch this video. But here are some other honorable mentions, which include Jenna Leigh Green, who played Heather Chandler, Corey English, who played Heather McNamara, and Christian Lakin, who played Heather Duke. Moving on to the many songs in Heathers, let's start with Beautiful. It's sung by Veronica and her high school peers, really setting the stage for the environment and tone of the story. The song is about Veronica's realistic and cynical view of high school life, specifically her own high school. Next, we have Candy Store. I believe it's one of the most popular Heathers songs, and it is sung by none other than the Heathers themselves. It's mostly about Heather Chandler advising Veronica about the hierarchy of the school and who's basically in charge. Fight for Me introduces the infamous JD who just moved to the school. He gets into a fight with a couple of the jocks, and it shows him winning in slow motion as Veronica sings about her fascination for him. It's not my favorite song because it's simply just about Veronica falling in love at first sight, but whatever. The song right after, however, Freeze Your Brain, is a great song that is sung by JD. We get a glimpse of his backstory and how he's had a rough life, moving through 10 high schools because of his dad, his mom passing away, and learning to grow up at an early age. Big Fun is just about the high school party that Veronica and Martha get invited to, and afterward, Martha is humiliated in front of everyone. Dead Girl Walking is sung by Veronica and JD when Veronica rushes over to his house to do their taxes, because she feels like there are no consequences to life after Heather Chandler threatens to ruin her reputation. Veronica's Chandler Nightmare isn't much of a song, but it does serve the purpose of Veronica's guilty conscience coming to haunt her. During the quote-unquote song, Heather Chandler's ghost haunts Veronica and guilt trips her into sleeping with the murderer that is JD while calling her terrible names. The Me Inside of Me is a song about JD and Veronica forging Heather Chandler's suicide note, which is sung by Veronica, Heather Chandler, the police, and the school. It's honestly one of the more depressing songs because it's about something that may or may not be true about Heather Chandler as they highlight her insecurities for being just a pretty girl. The song Blue is not important whatsoever. It's just about these two jocks, Kurt and Ram, who sing about sexual things that they want to do with Veronica and the remaining two Heathers. There are also these are the same jocks who get murdered soon after. Forget it. Anyway, nearing the end of the first act of songs, here is one of the more messed up ones, Our Love Is God. I've already described the way Kurt and Ram die, but this is the part of the plot when JD is now seen as the antagonist, not the Heathers. At the beginning of this video, I mentioned that the Heathers could be seen as the main antagonists throughout, especially since their names are in the title. However, that is all just a red herring, a cover-up, to who is truly Veronica's greatest enemy in high school. It's not just some powerful teenage queen and her underlings, no, it's someone far more influential. JD is a man with a heartbreaking and painful backstory, and unlike the Heathers, he works in the shadows to ensure that everybody gets what they deserve, even if it leads to their deaths. The songs in the second act are much more depressing, because that's when things get real, and the audience realizes that it's not just some stereotypical high school story. The songs Prom or Hell and My Dead Gay Son can be lumped together since they're about the two jocks, Kurt and Ram, and how Veronica and JD also forged their suicide notes. My Dead Gay Son is supposed to be comedic, which it is, but it's about how Kurt and Ram were supposedly gay lovers who just wanted society to accept them for who they were. It's funny because it's sung by each of their dads who are also supposedly gay. 17 is probably one of my favorite songs because it highlights the importance of staying young for as long as possible without worrying about the consequences of life, but it goes even deeper than that, because it's about Veronica wanting JD to stop all of these senseless killings so that they can just enjoy the rest of their innocent teenage years as a couple. Shine a Light is about the high school counselor wanting the students to basically shine a light on personal problems that they're all going through, since the topic of suicide has now been brought up twice with 3 of Westerberg's students. This song is followed by Lifeboat and is strictly sung by Heather McNamara to emphasize her own issues regarding societal standards and what Heather Chandler put her through. Hey Yo Westerberg is a very short song about the students singing about the pep rally that's happening the next night. Kindergarten Boyfriend is about Martha Dunstock, who sits alone without Veronica, who's preoccupied with JD. She talks about her kindergarten boyfriend, but the deeper meaning is about her own depression and feeling isolated from the rest of the world. This is followed by Yo Girl, Probably the most sensitive song now that I'm really thinking about it. The school spreads rumors about Martha trying to commit suicide by throwing herself off a bridge during the kindergarten boyfriend song. Obviously, she doesn't actually die, but she does get seriously injured. Now comes my absolute favorite song in the entire musical, Meant to Be Yours. JD wants Veronica to help him with blowing up the entire school during the pep rally and forging the biggest suicide note ever, which he plans to do by planting bombs in the boiler room beneath the gym. In a nutshell, he believes that killing every single high school student at their school will solve many of society's problems, including what's keeping him and Veronica apart. In reality, Veronica just can't handle JD's violent behavior, and she's afraid of him. I'm sure anyone would be in her situation. Anyway, she chases him down, and we get a reprise of Dead Girl Walking as she reaches the school. I Am Damaged is the final song besides the reprise of 17, and it's when JD realizes that he can't have his way by continuously murdering people and even committing mass genocide. Veronica shoots him with his own gun when he refuses to defuse it, and he tries to redeem himself by carrying the bomb as far away as possible, blowing himself up in the process. This marks the end of both his reign and even the Heather's reign over Veronica and Westerberg High School. I know I've been hinting at JD's backstory for the entire video, so here we go. JD is the son of a man named Bud Dean, the owner of a demolition company. This explains how he gets the explosives at the end of the story. JD had moved a total of 7 times before landing in Sherwood, Ohio, which is where Heather's takes place. His relationship with his father is affected by the suicide of his mother, who knew exactly what building to walk into when it was rigged with explosives by his father. We only hear from his father a couple of times, once when JD is explaining his trauma to Veronica, and another time when Veronica witnesses how emotionally abusive his father is towards him. It's unclear whether JD has murdered before Heather Chandler, but Veronica does ask him if he had done this before. He leaves her with no answer, basically implying that he might have forged a suicide note, not for anybody else in the past, but maybe for himself. In the end, I think it makes perfect sense why JD commits all of these heinous acts and puts Veronica through so much emotional turmoil. The plot of Heathers is not just about the struggles of being in high school, but it's also about the effects of trauma and how that can lead somebody down a dark path if not dealt with early on in life. Thank you so much for watching. This video took a lot of time to make, so I would really appreciate it if you would leave a like and subscribe. And please make sure to turn on that notification bell so you don't miss a future upload. More quality videos like this one coming soon. Once again, I really appreciate you, and I'll see you next time.